Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Coffee and Football, presented by Austin Underground. I'm your host, Blake Monroe, where I'm joined each and every day by Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton. We are 37 days away from kickoff, so tell us who your favorite number 37 is. Tell us where you're checking in from, what you're drinking, and, of course, as always, get those questions in. We already got a lot coming in, and we'll get to those here in just a little bit. But first, let's talk about a big day today in recruiting, Jerry. What's going on there?
Yeah, Texas recruiting pool party. That is today in Austin. Gets going around 1. Now, some of the guys are already on their way, like Jonah Williams. He'll be in Austin today, LSU Friday. So some of those guys, some of them may be the Michael Terrys of the world. They'll get in a little earlier. Those 2026 guys, everything really begins at 1 p.m. For those guys. But yeah, it's a big day for Texas. Not big in bulk numbers, but just big in getting FaceTime with this Texas staff. One last recruiting weekend here coming up, or day for Texas, it turns out. There may be a couple of guys kind of trickle through on the weekend, but this is the big recruiting day for Texas prior to the season, really kicking off on July 31st with the first practice. But Jonah Williams, Michael Terry, obviously 2 recruitments that should be coming to an end or have a commitment in August. Michael Terry's gone back and forth on that. Jonah Williams has an August 14th date. You see J.J. Hahn there. He's the up-and-coming, what will be 4-star D lineman out of Rancho Santa Margarita via Berlin, Germany. He has an official visit scheduled to Georgia on September 7th through 9th. His goal for one of his goals, him and his people around him's goal for this visit today with Texas is to set an official visit date in September. He'll go from Texas, maybe stop off at A&M since he's in there, then go to Oregon for a couple of days over the weekend. Oregon trying to lock in a September OV as well. So while he may not be a name as familiar to recruiting fans, casual recruiting fans, or he's not highly ranked on the colleges boards, he's risen a lot. So Alabama offered him, Florida offered him. Everybody that's seen him or had him on campus has offered him. A&M, Nebraska, you name it, all those schools are in on him. And trying to set up official visits, trying to get him on campus here. And we'll see if he's the only D lineman on campus today. I mean, we'll monitor that a little bit today. Elijah Barnes said yesterday he's coming in. The Coleman triplets are coming in. They didn't think they were going to be able to make it. Some of the guys, a lot of the commitments won't be here today. Parents working, whatnot. It's hard to get down. Transportation wise, time wise, all that if both parents are working. KJ Lacey in town. Then the 2026 is looking at that list. Diabell will be in. Chris Stewart. Obviously, this is Diabell's third visit since March when Texas offered him. So that's a big one. Javian Osborne, Amari Latimer. I think Texas would take commitment from either 2 of those running backs, probably both those running backs. I'm not saying it's going to happen at all. Latimer's from Tyrone, Georgia, Sandy Creek, one of those Atlanta area guys that Tashard Choice really likes. Texas really trying to work to establish a footprint of some sort in the state of Georgia. It's tough sledding in that Atlanta area, but Tashard Choice, Kenny Baker, and those guys, they're continuing to work there. Jordan Clay, John Turntine. Obviously, you guys know how I feel about John Turntine, scheduled to be in today as well. A few out-of-state guys making their first visits to Texas. Then you see in the Austin Syntex area there, Jamarian Carlton, Tiki Hola, 2 of the top edge D-line prospects in Texas in the 2026 class. Both those guys scheduled to be in today as well. So Mike Brown, the receiver from Legacy Sports School of Sports Sciences in the Houston area. Head coach Michael Bishop, by the way. Obviously, his father was a tremendous linebacker at Austin Reagan and A&M, and then the NFL before injury cut his career short.
Let's say it's a heck of a list.
Yeah, no, it is. And look, I think a few names will be added to that list. So we'll see. We'll see here in the next 2 or 3 hours. But we have our live thread going on Texas football already for the day, and if we'll be we'll be continuing to monitor who else may show up in the next couple of hours.
There's some potential surprises out there. Let's just put it that way. Jerry's trying not to get everybody's hopes up, but
because here's the reality.
There are some hopes up whether we're trying to or not.
Here's the reality. There's been a couple of guys that were scheduled to come in that canceled night before, day of. and that stuff happens in recruiting. So, we just got to kind of monitor these guys, wait for them to be on the way or be in Austin. Let's see what happens.
Yep.
Well, there was some very big news that affects not just football, but all of college sports, basically, that came out yesterday. Bobby, I'm going to let you touch on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So Ross Dellinger, who we've had of Yahoo Sports national beat reporter for college sports, he put out an article yesterday that has a lot of validity to it. There are roster and scholarship increases afoot right now for college football, college baseball, college basketball, women's softball, women's volleyball, and more. Football is expected to go from 85 to 105 scholarships. You can give up to 105. You don't have to fulfill all of them. So you can still have walk-ons, but that means that Texas could go from 25 scholarships a year that they try to give out to 30 to 35 in a year's time. We'll have to see. And one of my articles this morning on Texas Football was about exactly how Texas plays that out in football. We don't know. But I will say this, one of the immediate effects, Jerry, that I can think of, Bert Auburn doesn't come to the University of Texas without a scholarship anymore. A long snapper that's pretty good probably needs a scholarship immediately. Those specialty positions will likely be filled by non-walk-ons moving forward. They will be at that number. This is a win, considered a win for college football coaches. They were very scared that the number was actually going to be a hard number at 85, which would have limited what they call two-spotting. Two-spotting is the ability to run two different practices simultaneously. So the younger guys get just as many reps as the older guys. So the ones and twos can go in one group and the threes and fours in another. They get multiple reps. Everybody leaves practice feeling actually like they had a practice, as opposed to third and 14 just sitting on the sideline. So that number was a big win, because at the spring SEC media days, the question was whether or not that number would be down to 85 and not allow for walk-ons. So the scholarship number is 105. It is a big piece of the puzzle here, in my opinion, for what's going on. Now, I talked to a high-ranking source at the University of Texas this morning. Okay, this is another, and I shouldn't say source, official. Everybody would know this person's name. I said it. There was a disparity in what the NCAA is allowed between men's and women's sports. Officially, it looks like there's going to be 60 plus scholarships, new scholarships available in men's sports. I mentioned some of those sports. Not only is football getting 20 plus, baseball's around 20 as well. All total, men's sports are going to add around 60 new spots. Women's were only around 20. So Texas, to be in compliance with Title IX, okay, is going to have to add women's sports, because the NCAA did not allow enough spots for women's sports to just carry the way it is. So Texas will, as a result of this, most likely be adding and creating new women's sports. They've added beach volleyball, as a lot of people know, in the last year. So we'll see how that goes. But there are a lot of questions that are still with whose answers are unknown based off of what happened yesterday. There just are. Somebody's asking about stashing more developmental players. Absolutely, coaches can do that more. But there's a lot of stuff going on right now. You just don't know. And some coaches aren't going to want to go to 105 scholarships. They're going to want smaller rosters just because they like a tighter group. We'll see how it goes.
I have a few thoughts on that. One, so on the women's side, beach volleyball, because I happen to have some knowledge on this based on the last year, has been 6 full scholarships divided amongst a roster. You take that number up to 12, 15 immediately, and that makes up 9, 10, even. You could go as high as 18, like women's indoor volleyball, and that women's number goes up by 12 immediately. Then
but no, Jerry, they can't. The NCAA is setting limits on each sport.
Right.
On each and every sport.
Right, but what I'm saying is, what if they took beach volleyball the same as women's volleyball, indoor volleyball? They may not. It may just go to 10, but it's going to go up somewhat.
It is. It's going up in women's volleyball, women's softball, and other women's sports.
Yeah.
But the net effect this is what I'm being told by a source at the University of Texas. The net effect is plus 60 scholarships available now on the men's side and around 20 on the women's. So the net of all the sports they already participated in. So that means Texas has to find 40 women's scholarship spots to be in compliance with Title IX. And what that means, Jerry, is they're going to have to create at least one women's sport.
I was going to say gymnastics will be one for Texas because that fits in the SEC moving forward. And from the 105 and football standpoint, I'll say this again, it moves to 2 super conferences. That's what we're headed to. It's inevitable. It's headed that direction. That's a 20 scholarship increase. That's just where we're headed in the end game of all this. It's great. This rule's great for your SEC and Big Ten schools. Outside of that, I mean, I think this could cause some of your lower football schools to consider closing up shop, and that's going to happen eventually anyways on some level unless they go to spring football. But it's just not. They're not going to be able to compete financially. So I think that'll be interesting. For as far as if I was Texas, when I look at it, I said this on last night's live stream. I think moving forward, a Derry Norris type of player on the D line, a developmental position specifically, that kid's in a Texas class right now. So that's to me is a big difference. In basketball, they call them stash and develop for a year. I think that is one way, literally no excuses on the defensive line. You can go kid a kid like that. And you have to find the right guy that's saying, look, man, we love you. We think you got a really good future here. We're going to sit you 1 year. You're not going to play. We're going to develop you for this 1 year, then get you ready to go. See, with the 8, to me, you could use 85 of your 85 scholarships on high school kids, period. And then you got 20 scholarships for your portals and what have you. I mean, Bill Norton's at school half a year, right? Does he need a full scholarship? Because that's the other thing. They don't have to be full scholarship athletes, Bobby. That's one of the big things that was in that article by Ross Dellinger yesterday. So you could have 2 grad transfers that are coming in for a semester take up 1 scholarship total. I mean, so there's going to be some things to play with, but I do think one of the things you're going to see is 2-3 more high school development position guys in these classes moving forward, if people are smart. I mean, to me, that's a no-brainer, especially on your defensive line, your edge positions, where maybe that kid needs that time. And you don't really, in the 85 limit, you more had to factor that in differently. Now you can stash and develop on your defensive front 2 or 3 guys in each class. I think that's a big win for Texas and some of these schools right here. It's going to make it tough for the lower schools at these developmental positions to really find the talent they need, because I think you're going to see these power schools take 1 or 2, 3 more developmental guys at those key positions moving forward. That's what I think is going to happen.
Yeah, they still got to play, though. I think that before we get in, we got a bunch of questions that can run off of this. Before we get there, I want to say thank you to our sponsor each and every Thursday morning live stream brought to us by Austin Underground. Rick Vavro and his team have been specializing in difficult underground commercial installations since 2004. Got my tongue tied there a little bit. The team's engineering background gives Austin Underground the ability to perform work other firms often consider too risky. Rick and his team offer an end-to-end client experience, including seamless communication, budgeting, staffing, and top-notch trade partners. And most importantly, they produce solid quality work each and every time. That's Austin Underground. Also, if you're looking for big asphalt or concrete road projects, make sure you check them out at Texas Road as well. That's Rick and his team performing Austin Underground and Texas Road.
Hey, Blake, let's bring up Texas Beats. We've had a lot of questions about this. Bobby, tell them where they can get this shirt right here.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's that's one of our sponsors. It's 40 Acres Collection, available at the co-op. And we wear these shirts all the time. And I tell you, the thing about them is they actually feel great. They're that little moisture wicking feel, but they have the collars that don't flop after you wash it like 3 or 4 times. That's the thing that I like about these shirts as much as anything. Not only they feel great, they don't, like, I've had one of them for almost a year now, and I've worn it probably 40 or 50 times, and the collar is the same as it was the first time. So I like them a lot. 40 Acres collection at the Co-op.
As you said, we got some questions regarding the scholarship increase and what you just talked about, adding women's sports. And we'll start with the super chat from Jeff Carey. Thank you, Jeff. He says, how about women's synchronized swimming?
I don't think so. I think Jerry hit on one with gymnastics. The problem with gymnastics, Jerry, and others, it's a relatively small team. Relatively small team at this point. Lacrosse is not. Lacrosse is a big team. Now, the question for lacrosse, where in the heck do you put that on the University of Texas campus? There is some space available, but we'll see how that goes. Other ones that have been talked about is equestrian, which I'm not real high on personally, because that would have to definitely be off campus. But look, we'll see where all this goes. But 40 scholarship spots is fairly large. Fairly large.
And then some other questions that we have regarding this burnt orange horn. He says, I do not understand eliminating walk-ons. Does that also limit club sports?
They're not eliminating walk-ons. Okay, that's a misnomer. Because here's what can happen. A school can actually stay at 85 scholarships. They don't have to use all 105 scholarships. And I bet they don't. So what I mean by that is just because it's available doesn't mean they have to use all of them. They could have 95 scholarships and 10 walk-ons. The max number of the entire team, though, is 105. Okay. Now they can have more tryout spots in the spring, for example. You can actually carry more than 105 in the spring is how it's going to work. But when it comes to the fall, with practice and everything else, you can only have 105. So you could have 105 scholarship guys, or you could have 85 scholarship guys and 20 walk-ons. So the 12th man can still exist. A&M, rejoice. You can have your whatever you want to do there. My take on this is that it at least gives. I think it's a win for college football. The bigger schools in college football, like Texas, because to Jerry's point, they're going to be able to add more players that take longer to develop. I mean, why not, right? Especially on the offensive and defensive line, which are longer developing positions. So I think that's a good thing for the bigger schools. The question will be, what does this do to the Texas One Fund? Because that's going to add 20 new spots to the roster, right? That may need compensation. I put this to the head of the Texas One Fund at the University of Texas. I have not gotten a text back yet, but I literally just texted him at 7:30 this morning. I'll probably hear back from him this afternoon for more info. The point being is there are going to be ripple effects to this that we don't know yet. I mean, there are 100 questions going on in my mind and probably in yours too. We don't know all the answers because Sark, I even say this, Jerry, Sark could feel like, hey, I want to keep 85 scholarships and work the 25 walk-ons or the 20 walk-ons. Or he could say, hey, let's go up to 95 and leave 10 or 100 and leave 5, right? Or you could be, I don't know, Sonny Dykes at TCU and say, let's go down to 65 scholarships and kind of create this like a 53-man roster kind of thing like the NFL does. You can do either or. I'm not saying they will, but it leaves the determination up to the individual schools.
And then a couple
my take on this is I believe that you'll see. I mean, look, how many I should have looked at the roster this morning when I was chasing news, but how many portal players does Texas currently have on their roster? So that's one of the things I look at. I almost think you can I think you're going to see schools set this up, and maybe it's like an NFL, not taxi squad, but the developmental group of guys. But I really think you're going to see that long term at these power broker universities, the powerful schools, because that's too much of an advantage. I mean, now some people say it's going to be harder to recruit to that. Well, we'll see on that. We'll see when all the dust settles on profit sharing and NIL and what happens once everything settles, because it will eventually settle. But I don't see a way where these college coaches aren't going to look at this and say, I can have an additional 5 to 10 developmental players on my roster on the defensive line at edge position, maybe even a long, fast kid at corner that I can try to develop. I just really think this is where this is going to head from a development standpoint.
Let me ask you about this, though, Jerry. Okay, let's talk about this with NIL. You can go to 105 and then distribute that NIL to all 105 people. Or you could have a roster of 60 and distribute that in larger portions to just 60.
Yeah.
There's a give and take. I'm just trying to tell you.
But in a 16,
if I go to a roster, if I'm a player and I go to a roster of 70 players, I'm getting 1/70th of my share for football right now, is my understanding. If I go to a roster of 105, I'm getting 1/105th of that share.
It's going to be an interesting topic, but we know Sark's not going in that direction because he talks about eventual 16-team playoff, having to develop more depth and play more players.
That's true.
I mean, so I think the issue is I don't think I could see, Bobby, to your point, though, I could see the schools not in the Big Ten or SEC going that route because they're really not in the hunt. I could see a Boise State doing that. We're going to have 65 guys, man. We're going to get y'all a little bit more coin, and let's roll with that. I think there's 100%. I think that's what the mids and low majors are going to have to do to stay and keep football.
Well, they can't even afford the scholarships.
Right. So they're not going to 105.
No.
There's literally zero.
Well, not 105 scholarships.
No.
We'll go to 105 man units. It's not scholarships.
Not scholarships.
I kind of wonder, though, if you're on the team, I'm guessing if you're on the team, you participate in NIL. So they can't go to 60 scholarships and 45 and still, because if you're on the team, you're getting NIL.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, we got a couple of super chats that I want to knock out real quick. This one from Daniel, and thank you, Daniel. He says, does the new roster numbers allow a school to stash developmental players longer?
I think so. You got to find the right fit, though. I mean, you can't. There's some. Let's say you have 6 defensive line guys that are 6'4", 260, 6'5", 250. And you go to those 6 and you tell them what you want to do. There may only be 2 takers out of those 6. There may be some other guys say, you know what? Maybe I'll just go to Boise. Or maybe I'll go to Tulane and take my chances and play really well, then get called up to the big league, so to speak, because I do think it's kind of like major league and minor league baseball right now. So I think that's the thing. You're going to have to find the right guys. But I do 100% believe that you're going to see that with some of these schools moving forward. I mean, I wouldn't even think twice about it. That's the direction I would head. Because I know Brandon Huey was kind of joking. We're Texas. Why do we need developmental players? But defensive line, those guys are all still. I mean, there's very few guys that aren't developmental players. And I just think you just look at, you can cast a wider net on the defensive line. You can go get 2 or 3 of those guys that maybe go to a Minnesota, maybe go to a Georgia Tech, who you think they got a lot of upside. But under 85, we can't take those guys right now because we got to have guys that either can compete right away at the high school level or in a year, or we got to go to the portal. Now, I think you can do both. It's a great place to be.
And Mike G with the super chat. Thank you, Mike. He said, I just want to say thanks for all the hard work you guys put in. Bobby, Jerry, Blake, CJ, Rod, Coach Shipley, the best in the business.
Thank you so much, Mike. We really appreciate it, man. I got a really nice note today, by the way, from someone that says he doesn't post in the chat, but he appreciates what we do. John, if you're out there, thank you so much. He really appreciated yours and CJ's baseball update yesterday, Blake. So it was a good thing to wake up to, this morning. A nice note and everything. It's guys, we're less than a week out from football really starting back up. You know what I mean? And I'm getting a little excited right now, thinking about who the top players are for Texas this year. Obviously, everybody's got Quinn Ewers in the Heisman hunt, et cetera. We're anxious to see Trey Moore and see what he can do. We've talked a little bit about Anthony Hill and his development at middle linebacker and whether or not that's the case. Y'all have anything you and I talked yesterday with CJ on the state of the program, Jerry. Any other positions you really want to talk about? We've went over and over the situation at a wide receiver and just the conundrum there. Maybe tight end, a situation, backup offensive line. Any positions you want to talk about this morning?
Yeah, it is. I am. But the crazy thing is, Bobby, when Steve Sarkisian steps to the mic, does a press conference, whatever, next Wednesday, there's now better than 50-50 chances first question is going to be about scholarships and not even the first practice he just had. That's kind of where we're at in college sports right now. To me, that's just kind of wild, right? But yeah, look, for me, I'm not sure it's positionally necessarily. I mean, defensive line, what do all those guys look like? Because they're going to look like experience. This is going to look like a very experienced team, an older team when they run out onto the field for the first time. Bill Norton's 23, Lole. I mean, these are older guys. So they're going to look like an experienced, grown-up football team. Now, how is everybody going to play? How many games are they going to win? That all has to, kind of come out in the wash throughout the season. But getting off the bus, this is going to be a team that looks old and experienced. Not old like YMCA basketball old. You know what I'm talking about. The experienced college football team, older guys with older body types, more mature body types, I should say. So I think that's going to be interesting. I think offensive line for me, not so much the front line guys, but some of the younger guys. I mean, Brandon Baker, if he's between 310 and 315, he was about 280 as a senior. That's 30 pounds. That is, and he had it on his frame. I think, Bob, you saw him in person too. I mean, he had that ability to put that much weight strength on his frame, but to see that much of a difference in him will be interesting for me. Then look, I think one of the funnier things will be, and the kid's a hell of a player, but everybody, I guarantee people are going to be trying to get a picture of Silas Bolden next to somebody really big because he's 5'8", 160. So from a photograph standpoint, you just know what people are going to try to do. But the defensive line, I think the young linebackers, what does LaFau look like physically? Cecilia Kana, who's, he's 20 and a half or 21. I mean, he's an older kid for a second-year player, but physically he came in at 208 pounds. What's he looking like? Darian Gillette. Some of those young, Ty Anthony Smith, is he really close to 220? He was 193 pounds at the Adidas All-America game. That is a big jump. Now, I always said he reminded me of a state of Florida kid, one of a smaller school kid in Texas that played multiple sports. He did miss some time with injury. He got hurt in basketball when he was a little younger. But so that is a big jump. But kids can make that jump quickly, especially as many guys as there are early enrollees now. I always tell a story when I saw Calvin Ridley at Monarch High School in South Florida. He was a 19-year-old senior at the time, and he weighed 158 pounds. He was like 182 pounds by the time he played his first game at Alabama. So those guys they put on a lot of weight and good weight quickly. And if Ty Anthony Smith is close to 220, Bobby, that kind of changes his timeline to me because he impressed in the spring.
I'm ready. I'm ready to see all of them, dude. Hope we get that opportunity next week. Expected to start back practice on Wednesday of next week.
By the way, yes, somebody said Odin Horn's mild summer in Austin. It sure is. I mean, it needs to stop raining at some point. And for the people in Beaumont, I saw somebody, but this is not a bad summer. These guys aren't working out in 115 degree heat index right now. I'll say that.
Right now being the keywords there.
Yeah.
All right, Bobby, before we move on, can you tell folks out there about BetterHelp?
Yeah, absolutely. This episode of On Texas Football is brought to you by the fine folks over at BetterHelp. There are a lot of helpful apps out there. That is no doubt. There's no doubt about that. But it would be difficult for any of them to be more useful than BetterHelp.com. BetterHelp is an app that helps those in need to find the help that they deserve. Maybe you're having personal issues that you just can't figure out. Maybe you've experienced major trauma or recently lost a loved one. Maybe you just get caught up comparing yourself to someone else. Whatever the case may be, if you're considering beginning therapy as an option, you'll want to check out BetterHelp.com. BetterHelp is entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. So no matter what your own previous experience with therapy may be, check out BetterHelp.com today. Stop comparing yourself to others. Get the help you need. So start doing something about it. Visit BetterHelp.com/OnTexas today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/OnTexas. Thank you for your sponsorship of On Texas Football.
And while we're at it, Jerry, I'm going to let you tell folks about Gooder.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, I haven't really needed these in Houston the last couple of days, but you put them on anyways because, right, you can't break them. $25 if you throw them against the wall. They're all good, man. These things are well made. No slip, no bounce, all polarized, all fun. As I always say, you have a 1-year warranty, but you don't need that. You don't need to read that. That's not needed. Trust me, I wear these things. 30-day free returns. You don't need that either. You could sit on these things, maybe driving your car over. Might be going over the edge, but we don't want to try that. Here's the new product, the Retro G. Check them out. Retro G, new vintage inspired shades. These aren't them, by the way. These are just my regular Gooders. As always, these won't slip or bounce. The Retro Gs are available in 4 colors. Our favorite name of the bunch is Threaten Me with a Good Time. That's what we're going to do next Wednesday for you guys, right? First practice, open media session. If you want to support the show and try a pair, Gooder is giving On Texas, all caps, listeners free shipping. You can go to gooder.com/On Texas, all caps. Use that code On Texas, all caps for free shipping. Gooder offers a 30-day money-back guarantee, which I said you don't need. Don't worry about it. And 100% satisfaction. I would have written that 1,000% satisfaction. Again, that's gooder.com/On Texas, all caps.
Oh, man. I got
those reads, Jerry. You just happen to be really good at them, man.
I might start writing some for us.
You need to be the guy. You need to be the guy that's at the midway at a carnival because you get everybody playing those games that can't win.
Exactly.
You get them all doing that stuff.
I can tell you this: you don't want me writing
across the bottles, those impossible games. That'd be Jerry taking my $5.
I've got some advice for Manscaped. Don't let me write my own reads. Y'all keep writing them.
We got some super chats that we need to knock out. This one from Brandon Huey. Thank you, Brandon. He says, On Texas Football polos, Bobby, I'm ready to buy every color.
Oh, boy. Look, those things are coming. We've talked to some people about that as well as some hats. We're trying to do that as well as some coffee mugs, which is my personal one. I need one for coffee. I use so many different kinds of coffee mugs around here. I need to get one. But we're going to do some of that stuff. And hopefully we see you guys also coming up around Austin, Houston. We're also going to be in Dallas. I'm actually going, and I want to invite you guys out to this. Tonight, I'm actually headed to Tulsa and speaking at the Tulsa Texas X's. If you happen to be a member of the Tulsa Texas X's and want to stop by, please do so. I think the event starts at 6 o'clock tonight. I'll put a link up on the message board over On Texas Football if you happen to be in the area.
And then to switch gears here on this super chat, Zachary Moore. Thank you, Zachary. He says, any news on how the basketball team looks? Basketball recruiting. Also, any tips for my first Red River game? Parking, eating, and will you guys be there again for the pregame?
Man, there's a lot there, and I like it. Okay, thank you, Zachary, for the super chat. Basketball team, look, I think on paper, and I'm, you guys know I'm not BSing. On paper, I think better than last year. I think the guards are so much better as a group than last year. So I think that's one thing. Look, they have more size. I just got a interesting text from a 4-star recruit committed elsewhere, but we're going to save that. I'm not trying to be a tease, but I got to see what this means. That just very interesting, guys. Y'all like that if it's what I think it is. But so look, Tremont Mark, 6'6" guard. Trey Johnson, 6'6" guard. They have more guys that can go get their own shot, create their own shot when offense breaks down in the half court. Jordan Pope, 17.5 at Oregon State, can go get his own shot off the bounce. Made a big game winner against Arizona. He's that guy. Trey Johnson obviously can. He's going to be a first-round pick, if not lottery pick. Tremont Mark, 6'6" lefty, can go get his own shot. That is really good for this team. Julian Larry, the best facilitator, team runner, point guard they have, great leader. I'd say this. I've said this before, and this is not the takeaway from Rodney Terry or Coach McLean or any of the other guys there. Frank Haith is always, to me, kind of following him, kind of knowing him over the years, has been an elite evaluator of offensive basketball players. I've told the story before. He once convinced Rick Barnes to take PJ Tucker and sign him without ever seeing him play. That's very rare. So Frank's got the offensive eye. I mean, he identified A.J. Abrams. A lot of people just didn't think he was that level player. But did A.J. have deficiencies? Sure. He was height challenged, vertically challenged, but he was part of an Elite Eight team at Texas. He got one of the best shooters the program's ever had. So this team is built really well at guard. They're going to play 3 guards. This team looks good, but here's going to be the key. Arthur Kaluma is a good go get yours individual type of plays at a college 4. How that meshes in with these guys, I think will be key. Jason Kent, I think, is a really good college 4 that can play without the ball. He doesn't have to have the ball to impact games, impact winning. Caden Shedrick is healthier. Kendall Weaver is one of the best energy players in the country. He's improved. So Texas on paper has the guys. To me, the whole key with this team will be, before you get to in-game situations, is who's going to defer. There's too many scores. There's one basketball. And sometimes older guys are going to be asked to defer to a freshman, Trey Johnson. So people are going to have to kind of drop scoring expectations, shot volume expectations, and buy in. That's the hardest thing in college basketball, especially when you have a lot of roster turnover. But the team on paper, much stronger than last year. And I do believe that. I'm not just talking. That's kind of my opinion. I think they're much better at guard. So, hey, can you bring that question back up? Like, the first thing I would say for your first Texas OU game, and I think they've cleaned out the crickets, right? But if you sit up under the awning, people that have been there know. I mean, last year, I think there was 1 million crickets up there.
Hey, I've got the answers on the Red River game. We will definitely be there. By the way, we're going to be at the Yingling tent this year. We've already made plans and spoke with those folks. So we'll be there, and you guys are all invited, obviously. Just a little pregame. Somebody's asking about parking. Parking is a free-for-all, just to be honest with you. I parked in people's yards the majority of time when I haven't been there as a media member. So that's possible. As far as eating is concerned, here is the fundamental food of choice that you have at least once, okay? You don't have to
corn dog with mayonnaise, Bobby?
No, let me finish. You do not have to do this every time you go, because your cholesterol will go, out the roof. But at least once in your life, you need to have a Fletcher's corny dog. Just one. You don't have to have 5 like you probably want to. A funnel cake and a fresh squeezed lemonade. Now, if you're really hungry and it's late afternoon, you get a turkey leg. Okay? Everything else is superfluous. So everything else, you do whatever you want. But corn dog, funnel cake, lemonade, possible turkey leg if you're really hungry. And then, of course, the biggest piece is, after you finish that lemonade, it's really the beverage of your choice. Because that happens a little bit in that atmosphere. But that's my suggestion. Got to have a corny dog, man.
All right, guys. What you got there?
I'm going to bring this one up real quick, Blake. Was we've had Aaliyah Chavez, Ashley F. I've seen Aaliyah Chavez play. That's the #1 high school prospect in the country out of Lubbock, I believe, Coronado or either Monterey. Really, I don't think she's not Caitlin Clark as a facilitator, but she is a tremendous shooter scorer. I think she's going to stay home with Texas Tech. Look, I mean, based on what the softball player Kennedy got from Texas Tech, couldn't blame her if she did. I'll say that. But LSU, Texas Tech are the 3 schools with Chavez, and it's based on what Tech did with Kennedy. We'll see what happens.
All right, before we get on to these next questions and another super chat here, Bobby, I'm going to let you tell folks out there about Babbel.
Yeah, I've been talking about this for a good couple of weeks now. Babbel is a language learning app that I've chosen to help myself learn Spanish and get going on learning another language. The best way to learn a language, obviously, would be immersion, but I'm not moving to Mexico City this year. I've got to live where my feet are and live in here as an American. But I do want to be able to speak Spanish when I go to Cancun, hopefully at some point this year, and take my lovely wife. And that is going to require me to learn a little Spanish, or not require me, but I've been before, and I just want to know a little bit more. Babbel is their tips and tools are approachable, accessible, and rooted in real life situations, and delivered with conversation-based teaching, so you're ready to practice what you've learned in the real world. I've told folks I basically take a 5 to 10 minute course in the morning, and then a 5 to 10 minute lesson in the afternoon, and then you can review at any time. It's really a great situation. Babbel has more than 16 million subscriptions sold, so this isn't just some fly-by-night organization. Plus, all of Babbel's 14 award-winning language courses are backed by their 20-day money-back guarantee. Here's a special deal for our listeners. Right now, get up to 60% off your Babbel subscription, but only for our listeners at babbel.com/OnTexas. Get up to 60% off at babbel.com/OnTexas, spelled BABBEL.com/OnTexas. Rules and restrictions may apply.
As I said, we do have another super chat, and this one here from Justin Yarborough. Thank you, Justin, as always. He says, last night's live stream, y'all talked about Jonah Williams' recruitment. With athletes like him, does development and education play a part in trying to lure him to college? And would baseball and football split his NIL?
No clue on baseball, football splitting NIL.
Yeah, I don't know on that. Look, he is. I was just before this, I was on did some radio with Aaron Hogan and the guys in Austin. I talked about how Jonah Williams is a really good kid. His father played college football at U of H, is a judge in Galveston County. This kid, he handles success really well at a young age. I think what's so interesting is, and I think that's why colleges, it's a big reason why, yeah, he's extremely talented, but I think that's a reason why the colleges in football side continue to pursue him at the level they do, despite knowing it's at best 50-50 he ever makes it to campus, especially with the July he had. Blake, you can speak to that more. But apparently he just really had a strong tournament in Atlanta in the wooden bat tournament there, but both off the mound as a left-handed pitcher and at the plate the second half of that tournament. But, you know, he's an elite athlete. He's got elite size. He's got elite traits. And he's such a good kid. He's such a good culture fit in all these programs that kind of preach that and talk about that. He fits. But that's when you know a guy really has the intangibles. Is a lot of people wouldn't recruit him right now, even as talented as he is in football, because they know it's 50-50 at best he ever comes to campus. So I'm going to continue to say what I've been saying. Wherever he commits on August 14th, it helps your recruiting class ranking. He's a heck of a talent, great kid. parented extremely well, then less than 50-50. I mean, he's Blake, kind of speak to that. Yeah, I mean, I think you've said he's ranked as the number 1 high school outfielder by some people in the 2025 class.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to top 3 rounds if that locks
Well,
up.
and not only that, as you said, I mean, he's had a phenomenal summer, especially pitching. We saw him get up to 94 recently. And then, Jerry, I think it was you that actually said after throwing 100 and something pitches, he was still hitting the low 90s. So you combine that with being one of the best outfielders out there. And yeah, and in fact, I talked to somebody from the Texas baseball staff last night about him. And the word they used was freak.
Yep.
You know, just an absolute freak on the football field and, of course, on the diamond as well. So, yeah, I think baseball's the end game when it comes to Jonah Williams.
So somebody asked, Grady Jenkins asked, does Texas see him as a safety? I think colleges, not just Texas, colleges are recruiting him at safety. Do they see him at safety long term? I'm not sure that is going to be the case, but I'm not, like we just talked about, I'm not sure it's actually going to matter. We'll see. Yes, LL, Jonah is a lefty. Left-handed pitcher, left-handed batter.
All right, guys. Well, let's talk some more questions, or take some more questions here, and plenty of time to get your questions in. Corey J wants to know, is there a chance Dia Bell could finish as the number 1 QB in his class?
Always a chance. I mean, Jack Curtis committed to Georgia, is ranked as that or right there right now. There's a couple other guys in the picture, but I mean, look, he's considered a top 5 quarterback in this class headed into junior season. I'll say the one thing he has going for him, having gone down the American Heritage, he is playing with some elite speed at the high school level at wide receiver. He has a chance to, and I don't know if offensively, and they're going to blow out some teams down there on their schedule. Now, they play a tough schedule, but there's going to be some he'll only play a half, but he has a chance to have a lot of production too. I mean, 3 of the 4 members of that 4x100 meter team for American Heritage, who ran the second fastest team to Pascasita in high school in the 4x1, 3 of those 4 guys are sophomores in his class. Those guys all have multiple Power 5 offers. Another kid's committed to Miami at receiver on that team. He's going to have a chance to not just, look good as a prospect in the camp settings, the Elite 11 settings, whatnot, but also on the field. And that they play a schedule. They'll have TV games. He's going to have opportunities because American Heritage is that level program. He's going to have a chance to put up some pretty impressive numbers if they're not too good.
And then our next question, fellas, actually for you, Bobby, it's a good time to plug this. Taylor T says, is there still an OG discount for the website? And if so, what is it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's OT. You go to the website ontexasfootball.com. That's where Jerry, myself, CJ Vogel, Blake, we all put our news and notes throughout the year and throughout the day, not just when we're online and on video and podcast here. If you go to On Texas Football, we actually have an annual subscription to get to the premium content. It's $39.95 a year for a year. That's cheaper than anywhere out there. If you use the promo code OTFOG, you have to use the promo code OTFOG, push apply, and then it'll be for $39.95 for 1 year. Not a better deal out there. And we definitely hope you guys come join us and join in on the message board. We've created a nice little community. I love how you guys are. I think one of the great things I like about it is that the community on the site has been fairly, I don't want to say tame because they're not tame, but it's not calling people out and being rude to one another. It's been a nice change from some other places, would be my guess, or would be my take on the matter. Not perfect. We're not perfect, but I like the way that the community's coming together and talking and that sort of thing.
Hey, I want to hit one thing because I appreciate Ashley F. bringing some women's hoops to this. Rory Harmon, I think she's in a discussion, has to stay healthy this year. I want to say I actually watched her work out with TJ Ford before she went back to Austin. She was working with TJ as she was getting released to do basketball activity stuff, and she looked ahead of schedule. But to Ashley's point, obviously she's a huge difference maker. But if she stays healthy this year, with Madison Booker as a sophomore, the first team all Big Ten girl that will play in the WNBA from Michigan at Texas. What they brought in, Jordan Lee can really shoot it as well from California. They're going to have an offensive team that I think can score in bunches more against quality defensive teams. I think that's something. So as long as Vic gets him to play his style, which he's great at, I think what could make them a real contender this year is the ability to create runs and bunch score against really good teams defensively. I think that'll be something to watch because they have better offensive players as an all-around team this year. More people that can put it in the basket, go get their own shot, can shoot the ball on the perimeter. Vic's got a really good squad if they stay healthy. So I wanted to mix that one. And thank you, Ashley, for all the comments.
Hey, Jerry, I got to ask you. You kind of just, and somebody mentioned in the chat, you've kind of just glossed over that text that you got in the middle. You haven't come back to that. And I think some people in the chat are kind of waiting patiently. Here's Juju Juice. Jerry, you can't just skate past the text nugget you gave us. What's up with it? Is there anything you can report, or do you still need to hold off before you say anything?
Somebody sent me a player sent me a text with him in a Texas uniform.
Oh, don't people are going to like zoom in on that thing now and try to.
I know, but so
it's going to be the Zap Reader film.
Look. I mean, but I think it was a visit that had to be rescheduled, is what I'm thinking right now. But I'm not going to get the answer until after we get off the air here. But I'm not playing games with people. This is just kind of in real time. Sometimes this stuff happens.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, what time does the pool party start? LL wants to know.
The visits start for about 1 p.m. And that's really your 2026 guys. You know, Jonah Williams, I got a text at 4:50 this morning that I think they were on the way to Austin. And then you have Michael Terry down the road. Some of those guys will be in a little earlier. There's not a set schedule. I think for those 2026 guys, 1 p.m. Is when the event starts. 3:45, 4 is kind of when the pool party itself starts. Somebody asked if Texas players will be at the pool party. I'm sure they will. They're all around the facility. They're all around. They have workouts today. So, yeah, those guys are always kind of around it, how involved they are. Maybe not as much since it's not an official visit weekend, but they're around.
Let's take some team-related questions here. Isaac Darden says, I got Cook, Bond, Moore, Bolden as my top 4 receivers. Who y'all got?
That may be the 4 out of the gate, but I don't know how you keep Ryan Wingo off the field based on what I've been told. Look, I don't know the answer at receiver. I'm not sure Steve Sarkisian knows the answer at receiver right now. And furthermore, they can go through all this stuff in fall camp. I don't know if he's going to know it until he gets into games where he sees how people react in front of 100,000 people, because he has got 5, 6, 7 guys that are high-end guys. And so ultimately, it's going to be the ones that produce that are the top 4. And that, I think, is important for how we look at this. I absolutely believe that Cook, Bolden, Golden, and Bond would be the first 4, with the exception of possibly Ryan Wingo inching his way in there. DeAndre Moore is ready to go, in my opinion. So I'm one of those guys that I'm willing to wait on that and just see. I mean, we talk about what we want to see next week. Obviously, I want to see what all these young guys look like. I mean, where is Aaron Butler? Where's Parker Livingstone? I don't think they're going to butt into the top 4 this year by any stretch. I don't want to mention that, but just how are those guys looking alongside what Ryan Wingo's looking like? How's Jonte Cook look? Is he a little bit more physically filled out? DeAndre Moore a little more physically filled out? That might matter. I don't know. We'll see where it goes. But those would be the top 4 probably out of the gate with Ryan Wingo. I just don't know who he's going to knock out of that.
One thing I've said is I think the main guys at Michigan are going to change by midseason. I think early in the season, what'll be interesting is how this position plays out this year, because I think early in the season, when you go up to Michigan, experience is going to matter. I mean, it really is going to matter. So does Ryan Wingo have as much of an impact in the Michigan game as he will have in the Oklahoma or Georgia or second half of the season games? Maybe not. But I think the experience plays a big part early in Michigan. It just does. Guys have played. I mean, Isaiah Bond's played in big games that really matter. He's made big plays in big games that matter, obviously. Silas Bolden has had some big game experience at Oregon State last year when it mattered. Matthew Golden's an experienced player. So I think that's certainly going to matter earlier in the season. And I also think the big thing with the wide receiver position, I don't care if they're portal guys or guys that recruit out of high school, is, Sark is in that environment, in that game, he's also going to play the guys he trusts to not mess up pre-snap, not throw off the rhythm of the offense. So there's that piece of it too. So I think it's going to be fascinating to see how it plays out. But I will say this. I think this position is going to change maybe quite a bit from first couple of weeks of the season to second half of the season in terms of snaps, targets. That's just where I'm at with it.
And then Big Hulk 24 wants to know, who do you think reaches 1,000 yards first this season?
I think it's going to be. I think if it is, it's going to be Cedric Baxter. He's the lead running back as of right now. I know people are saying, well, Jaden Blue is going to be that, but I think Jaden Blue is that explosive guy that Sark will use as a true number 2. I think it's Cedric Baxter all the way, Big Hulk. I really do.
You think we'll see 1,000-yard receiver?
Ooh. If you think Quinn's going to throw for 37 to 39, you're probably going to see 1,000-yard receiver. If that, and I would be surprised if that is the case, if it's not Jonte Cook. I know that there's some other guys that are bigger play receivers maybe than Jonte. But Cook, Golden, and Wingo right now are the guys for me. I'm interested to see how Bolden transfers with his size. And I want to see – I'm being told that we need to see consistency out of Isaiah Bond. So not that he doesn't – he's consistently fast, by the way. That's not the problem. Consistency in every other way.
One possibility too there is if you have a couple of guys challenging for that, maybe there was injury or depth that didn't come through like you originally thought right now.
Yeah.
But Sark's already said he's playing more guys.
Then our next question, fellas, comes from Brian Jones. Can we realistically expect multiple 10-plus sack guys on our defense this year?
That's a little much for me. If that happened, Texas would probably have 45 sacks as a team and play a 15-game schedule.
Hey, need to go back over. We were talking earlier, and I've seen some questions in the chat about the scholarship numbers, and talk to y'all a little bit about that. If you missed it yesterday, reporting by Yahoo Sports that football will go from 85 to 105 in number of scholarships available, but that will be the max limit on the team, period. So they can't go over and have more than 100. They can't have 105 scholarships and another 20 walk-ons. It's 105 total, no matter how you make it up. They're going to 34 spots in men's baseball. They're adding, I think, 13 or 14 spots in women's softball. They're adding 6 in women's volleyball. All total, there are 60-plus new scholarship spots for men and 20-plus for women just at Texas. You got to remember, though, Texas only plays 21 varsity sports. Some of these teams have 35, like Stanford, right? So how it affects Texas is 60-plus for men, 20 for women. And we believe, and having talked to someone at the University of Texas this morning, we believe that's going to lead to the creation of another women's sport. Some people are saying, well, if you split a scholarship, somebody asked in the chat, if you split one of those scholarships, can it count for two people? Okay. Title IX is not necessarily about being exactly equal as it is the same amount of opportunities for players or people. So whether they're fulfilled and utilized or not is a different story. You have to have the same number of opportunities. So one scholarship equals one scholarship. One scholarship can't be split by two people and say that's an opportunity for two people. It's about number of opportunities as you go forward. We talked earlier also in this discussion about what this might mean to the football team. Jerry's a big believer that the idea that there will be more guys, particularly on the offensive and defensive lines, that could be developmental guys. We see it all the time, how big linemen take a little bit longer to mature and or get physically ready. I mean, look, Tavondre Sweat, it took him 3 or 4 years, right? Not that he didn't play a little bit. It just took him that long. And that's one of those are those positions that you could see Texas and other teams try to go more the developmental route long term. It'll obviously have an effect on total scholarship numbers, how many people Texas signs each and every year. We don't know how Sark, though, is ultimately going to play it.
Yeah, so this is kind of my thought on it real quick. Just look at D-line by itself. Look, right now, Texas is having to decide, okay, we have 85 scholarship hard count number. There's a couple of D linemen out there that, man, we really liked, but, from a high school perspective, you can't really take those guys right now because you might have to go to the portal. But when you have that 20 extra scholarship number, that decision doesn't even have to be made anymore. You might have 2 other D linemen you really like. And if they're okay with, I call it stash and develop, because that's what college basketball coaches call it sometimes, but stash and develop for a year. Look, sure, you can go to Minnesota, Georgia Tech, wherever. Great, if you want to do that. But if you're interested in this, here's what we think we can do for you. And this is how much we like you. And it may take 6 guys like that you find that have the frame, have the athleticism, that's arm length, all the things you're looking for to develop. You might have to recruit 6 or 7 of those guys to get 2 to say yes to that. But right now, you can't even consider that, or Texas isn't considering that in this class. So I think moving forward, that's absolutely on the table and will help your defensive line development, which I know people want it to be add water instant player at that position, but it's not.
All right, Bobby, before we move on to these final few questions, can you tell folks out there about Austin Underground one last time?
I sure can. Rick Vavro and his team have been helping Austin area businesses for decades, more since 2004, actually, with serious commercial underground installations, whether it's pipe, foundation work, etc. Austin Underground, as well as their sister company, Texas Road, which helps big road projects for subdivisions or new roads on a big acreage, etc. Give them a call at either Austin Underground or Texas Road. Rick Vavro and his team have been very kind to us here at On Texas Football. We appreciate him very, very much.
We got another super chat here. This one from Dwayne. Thank you, Dwayne. Glad you got your super chat issues worked out. And he says, how are we feeling about Jamie French? I'm surprised this batch of top receivers not excited to play
with Arch.
With Arch. Okay, thank you. I couldn't put that together there. Thank you.
I'm really good at autocorrect because I'm terrible. But yeah, so look, Jamie French will be at LSU today, tomorrow, then Miami. And that's what's going to happen. Once you set that date, everybody's going to make that mad dash to get you on campus one last time before you announce. Not apparently going to make the Georgia official visit this weekend. So it's LSU and it's Miami. I think Texas continues to have a lead over Tennessee and LSU in Miami. So we'll see what he does on August 30th. That's a important day for him because that is his mom's birthday. That's why the August 30th date is set in stone.
And our next question from Arch Mania. He says, guys, will our edges dominate? Can you imagine having our third team guy dominating starting left tackles?
I think that's the hope. But I don't know. Look, dominating is a hard word in college football. It rarely happens. You know it when you see it, but it rarely happens. Texas dominated Texas Tech last year, right? We saw that. Texas dominated Oklahoma State last year. Did we see a defensive player dominate for Texas last year at all, Jerry? Byron Murphy and Tavondre Sweat dominated in the middle. I look. I hope a third down pass rusher can actually dominate. My point being, win more than you lose is a good starting point for a third a rookie essentially in Colin Simmons. That's the thought process for me.
Okay, I can go ahead and give my news now.
Breaking.
All you had to do is wait. Fellas. Myron Charles was scheduled to be in, but he's not. He's going to have to reschedule that. So here's the thing. And I thought that's kind of what that was getting at. But I had to kind of decipher and find out. But look, they're going to recruit these guys. These guys have stayed in contact with multiple colleges since they committed. Him, Josiah Sharma, other guys. Gird up your loins. Recruiting ends in December 4th. That's all I'll say. So that's where we're at, and there will continue to be battles. Hey, can you bring up, Blake, the tweet of Deshaun Foster's comment? Now, Deshaun Foster had a rough go yesterday, but his comment on Oregon that was tweeted out was interesting. That'll be fun for this chat.
Yeah, I mean, basically, if you can't get to it, Deshaun and what the one that Jerry's referencing is Deshaun Foster, the new UCLA head coach, said, "We are working with a salary cap." And he was talking about his own team, UCLA. He goes, "Well, Oregon isn't." So basically everybody but Oregon out west is operating with a salary cap, but apparently Oregon does not have one. That is not what Texas fans want to hear as Jonah Williams and Michael Terry make their way to Austin, both of whom are considering.
Here's the comment.
Is it fair to say you're taking more of like kind of an NFL approach with your program? Just with the staff and the way you handle things and this new era of NIL and all that?
Yeah, because we play 17 games and what they play? 18?
Right.
18. You know what I mean? So it's the same. It's almost the same thing. There's a GM now. There's a salary cap. Well, Oregon doesn't have one.
Is it fair to say?
That's good, Blake. Yeah, he just basically – the audio there wasn't great coming out of there, but he essentially said Oregon is the one that doesn't have a salary cap. Everybody else is operating with one.
Juice. His opening statement was horrendous. I don't know if y'all saw that, but
I felt bad for him.
It was rough. It really was.
He just locked up.
He got sold. Y'all know that Deshaun Foster was almost a Longhorn, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I covered that recruitment hard because it had come down to Texas and UCLA, and he got sold on staying home and succeeding Skip Hicks, who was from Burke Burnett, Texas, as the starter at UCLA over Texas. I thought he was going to be the perfect next guy for the University of Texas, but he ended up going to UCLA in the month of January back then, when you could make a commit when signing day, the primary signing day, was actually the first Wednesday in February.
Gira has a question. Where would Michael Terry fit on Texas defense, offense? What position? Really good question. Look, he wants to be an offensive football player. He wants a chance at wide receiver. I think wherever he goes, he'll be given a chance at wide receiver. Then it'll be up to him to either make it or not. I think I see him as an Amari Niblack level guy if he was a tight end, which I think's a hell of a player and potential high draft pick. But I think Niblack's going to have I think right now, underrated season at Texas. I think he's going to be a big part of the Texas team this year and a really good player and different than anything else you can put on the field at that position because he's such a high-level athlete. And I think Michael Terry at 6'2.5", 220, 215 right now, being a multi-sport guy in high school, keeping him under 230, 235 with that the length of that frame is going to be difficult. But if he's 6'3", 240, and he's running 4.5 with the natural ability ball in hand he has, it's kind of what you have with an Amari Niblack. So, I mean, if that is your ceiling, that's where you want to be. That's a good ceiling. Now, people around him may say, look, you want to either be an edge rusher, wide receiver, they make more money in the NFL. That doesn't mean it's his best position. And the thing about defense is people can tell these guys, you should play defense until they're blue in the face. But if a kid doesn't have a defensive mentality, if he doesn't want to play defense, he's not going to be successful. He's going to be a wasted, hellacious athlete. If he wants to play offense, he needs to play offense. He's just got to find the where.
All right, guys. Well, that's going to do it for today's episode of Coffee and Football, presented by Rick Favreau and Austin Underground. We want to thank them, along with BetterHelp, Gooder, and Babbel, for sponsoring today's show. Thank you all for tuning in. The great questions, the super chats. As Bobby said earlier, if you haven't already, head on over to ontexasfootball.com. You can become an OTF OG for just $39.95 a year using promo code OTFOG when you sign up. Not a better deal out there. And if you haven't already, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. We would definitely appreciate that, as we appreciate all your support. Anything, Jerry, I know you're going to be covering the pool party all day, but what else y'all got that people need to be aware of?
Yeah, we'll be covering that today. I mean, it'll be interesting to see, look, anybody else show up that we weren't expecting. One, I think, is off the board right now, which probably means two's off the board. We'll see on that. But look, the main thing I'll say is about this is just that situation right there. That Texas they're going to just remember they're going to stay on their 1A guys, even if they find other guys they like, an Aaron Butler or what have you in a class. They're going to stay on these guys. It's going to be a fight to the finish. I think that's kind of how Sark and these guys like it, by the way. But I think it'll be big today with Jonah Williams going from Texas to LSU, announcing on the 14th, because Texas is the one school that didn't get an official visit. So that's a tough position to be in. Doesn't mean you can't win it, but tough position to be in. Then Michael Terry, does he go from Texas to Oregon to Nebraska? Does he follow through with all those visit plans? And does he shortly announce a decision date in early to mid-August? I think those are the things we're watching for there. And obviously with the 2026s, I'm not ruling out somebody committing. The interesting thing, Bobby, we haven't gotten to with all this because we haven't really had time to digest it yet, is with that hard count going up. Do you maybe take 2 or 3 more guys early, younger in some of these classes, because you may have 2 or 3 extra numbers to play with? I think that's going to be interesting to see kind of does Sark have a little bit of a change in strategy early with some of these kids, because you got a couple more, 3 more numbers to work with in these high school classes.
All right. Well, we will be back same time, same place tomorrow. So for Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton, I'm Blake Monroe, and we'll see you then.
Hook 'em, guys.